In the summer of 2024, I went on my second cruise with Virgin Voyages. We sailed the Adriatic Sea in Europe, visiting beautiful places in Croatia and Greece. And with the cruise experience from Virgin Voyages with great food, services, activities, and entertainment, this itinerary is definitely worth doing it again. Hello everyone, it's Wuiseng again. I hope you're well. So in 2024 I went on my second cruise with Virgin Voyages. And you might think, why in the world you're making this video in 2026? Well, it's because I thought I lost one of my memory cards with a big part of my video footage on it. But fortunately, I've recently found the missing memory card in my wallet. So here we are. The 7-night itinerary is called the Adriatic Sea and Greek Gems, and it's a round trip on the ship Resilient Lady from Athens in Greece. We visited Split and Dubrovnik in Croatia, Kotor in Montenegro, and the island named Corfu in Greece. Although the very same itinerary doesn't exist anymore, you can still find a comparable one on Virgin Voyages' website. My trip started in the Netherlands, where I come from. Like the last time, I flew in a day before the cruise would start. I had a pretty late flight, so I arrived late in Athens as well. Keep in mind that the trains to the city center of Athens might not be available anymore if it's too late, so you would need to take the bus or a taxi. The next day I left my hotel very late, not knowing that I could have dropped my luggage at the cruise terminal first and explored the city with a complimentary shuttle bus to the center of Piraeus. So don't make the same mistake, drop off your luggage in the morning and return when it's time to board the ship. Before check-in and boarding, we waited in these big tents. It can be very hot in these tents, so keep the time in here as short as possible, although Virgin provided water and towels. The check-in process went smoothly, and after 20 minutes or so, I finally boarded the ship. I already felt a bit sad knowing that I would be leaving this amazing ship in 7 days. The first thing I did was go into my cabin, drop off my stuff, and watch the safety video. I'm not sure this format really makes the information stick, but they are still using it. After watching, you have to go to your designated assembly station somewhere on the ship, which can be found in the app, to complete the master drill. And after that you are free to do whatever you want. And the first thing I did was going straight to the galley to grab something to eat, because I hadn't eaten anything since my breakfast. If you board early, make sure that you have packed all the things you really need or use in your carry-on luggage, because your suitcase might arrive much later to your cabin. After a short walk around the ship, it was almost time for departure, which means the sail away party was about to begin. During this sail away party, you're welcomed by the hostess and the happenings cast, with plenty of bubbles. If you want to be part of this party, make sure you don't make dinner reservations between 5:30 and 6:30. While the party was still going on, the ship started to leave the port of Athens. I made the dinner reservation for 7:15, so I still had some time to explore the ship more. The first dinner reservation was for the wake at decks 6 and 7. I've looked forward to it for almost a year because their hanger steak is fantastic. Because all specialty restaurants are included in your cruise fare, there's no reason to hold back. So I started with all the side dishes first, and then with my hanger steak. And ended with a nice dessert. After dinner I went to the social club on deck 7 to watch the Olympics in Paris, and not long after that the pyjama party took place on deck 16 in the Athletic Club bar. It was in the middle of the summer, so it was still warm outside. When the weather doesn't allow it to be held outside, the pyjama party is usually moved to the manor on decks 6 and 7. If you don't plan on going to the pyjama party, there's a lot of other things to do on the ship. For example, listening to some live music, attend a live show, do some shopping in the many shops on board, or try your luck in the casino. The second day was a sea day, which I always appreciate. It allows you to take a good rest before you start visiting cities, and I can imagine that if you're still jet lagged, you appreciate it even more. It also gives you the opportunity to really explore the ship or just chill wherever you want. And the only thing you have to think about is what you're going to eat and drink next, or how you want to be entertained. I started my day not that late because I made a reservation for breakfast at the Razzle restaurant. It's a vegetarian restaurant, but there's plenty of options for non-vegetarians as well. If you go a bit early, the restaurant isn't so crowded so that you can enjoy a peaceful breakfast. I took a heavy breakfast because why not? I started with this melon slice, which is my favorite breakfast item of the entire cruise. And as main course, I had this fried chicken sandwich with a side salad to balance it out. After breakfast, I enjoyed the sun at the top deck, but also at the dockhouse located at the aft of the ship. I really like the dockhouse because there's always a very chill vibe to it and usually not that crowded. It has its own bar and also its own food menu with very tasty food items, so don't forget to try it. On a sea day, you'll find way more activities all day long across the ship. For example, you can participate in a music quiz, or grab a board game from the library to play with your friends or family, attend a magic show, join a game of dodgeball, or listen to live music. And if that's not your thing, then you can dip your toes in the swimming pool and enjoy the sun at the top level decks, accompanied by a live DJ. Whenever the ship is sailing, that means the casino is also open, so you can try your luck there. If you want to know what activities are on the ship for that day, just open the Virgin app or grab a printed version of the daily schedule. I've made a dinner reservation at the Korean barbecue restaurant Ganbei for that evening. You can find Ganbei next to the galley on deck 15. Since I was sailing solo, I was seated with other sailors because each table has room for 6 to 8 people. So it's a very nice opportunity to meet new people, and I had the great pleasure to be seated with 5 people from the UK. If you like Korean food, you should definitely pay this restaurant a visit. You'll definitely notice how good the quality of all the food is. I personally don't care for barbecuing my own food, but that was not necessary because the waitress did all the work for us. Keep in mind that the portions are above average, so either don't order too much or don't eat too much before you go to this restaurant. After dinner, I walked off my dinner on the top deck and listened to some live music, while other people attended a live show or a party at the manor. I stayed in cabin 11232M, which happens to be my lucky number. You open your cabin with your special bracelet, which is called the band, and I think it's actually the best if I compare it with other cruise lines. It's a solo insider cabin, and it's the smallest cabin that Virgin Voyages has to offer. I have to say that the cabin is small, you only have room for one big suitcase, however it didn't feel claustrophobic, and I appreciate the bed was wider than a normal one-person bed. Also, the bathroom was the same size as in other bigger cabins. Because there's no window in it, it gets very dark, but you can turn on the ambient lighting on the tablet. On day 3, I started my day with breakfast at my favorite restaurant, The Wake, to wake up. Keep in mind that if you want to make sure you have a seat, make a reservation for it. Although you can try walking up to the restaurant and see if there are any seats available. They have a special brunch menu, so you can get a great start of the day. While I was waiting for my breakfast to arrive, the ship arrived at the port of Split in Croatia. I didn't have a heavy breakfast, just a clam chowder and these eggs, as it was too early to have steak available on the menu. After my breakfast, I went to the galley to get some fruit and yogurt, and after that, I prepared myself to get off the ship to visit the city. It's only a 10-minute walk from the port to the city, so don't jump on a taxi just for a 2-minute ride. Split in Croatia is a history-rich city and is definitely a place to visit if you're going to Croatia. While many of my fellow sailors headed to the nearby beaches or joined one of the many excursions you can book through Virgin, I went straight to the old town of Split for a tour I had booked through Voyages. It was in the middle of the summer, so it was pretty hot. But thanks to Croatia's low humidity, it was actually quite bearable, but make sure you prepare for it. I met my tour guide Josipa in this park in front of the gate of the palace, and apparently I was the only one for the tour, so I got my own private tour guide. So the old town sits inside a 1700-year-old Roman palace, and there are actually people living and working here, so it's not only a tourist attraction. You will find quite a lot of little cafes, restaurants and shops in the narrow marble streets. And it's a beautiful place to walk around. It definitely gives you the idea you're walking through ancient Rome. When I was there, it was a bit crowded, but fortunately there are enough open places to walk through. And my tour guide took me also to the side street that not a lot of tourists would walk to. I would definitely recommend booking a local tour guide because they can give you the highlights and interesting facts about whatever you want to visit, but also they can recommend the best restaurant, things to do or anything else. Just ask them, it's way easier than looking things up for yourself and hope for the best. After my private tour, I headed back to the ship for a very late lunch, then went back into the city again to look for higher ground, to enjoy this really nice view and take some pictures. I headed back to the ship around dinner time since I had a reservation at Pink Agave, the Mexican restaurant on the ship. I was seated close to the window so I could still enjoy the view of Split. I know that not everyone likes it, but the music in this restaurant is a bit louder than in any other restaurants, but not so loud you can't hear the people you're sitting with. After yet another fantastic 3-course meal with steak, I headed to the top deck to enjoy the sunset and the view of Split, and also hoping to catch some pier runners, but unfortunately there weren't any that evening. While other sailors participated in another quiz or the karaoke night, the ship left the port at around 9 because the next port wasn't that far from Split. After a late night snack, I headed back to my cabin to be well rested for the next port. One of the most common questions about Virgin Voyages is whether it's a good option for solo cruises. Absolutely, and the best part is that you can choose to be on your own or be with other solo cruisers. For example, they have special meetups for solo cruises, and each evening you can go to one of the specialty restaurants to join the solo cruises table, so that you don't have to dine alone. So if you're a solo cruiser, don't be afraid that you're actually all by yourself, so book that cruise. So I stayed in an insider cabin, which means no balcony and no window. It doesn't come with many perks apart from the lower price. So every morning I had no idea where we were until I went up to the galley and looked out the windows. Most of the time the view would impress me, and that was definitely the case in Dubrovnik, one of the most well-known cities in Croatia. That morning I had breakfast at the galley. You might say it's a semi-buffet restaurant since you have a lot of different choices, but you can grab a plate and get the food yourself. After a big breakfast with a fantastic view, I walked off some calories while enjoying the scenery. Not long after that, I got off the ship to visit the city. Dubrovnik is another coastal city, which is surrounded by thick stone walls that separate the old town from the rest of the city. Even though the old town is close to the port, it's still roughly an hour of walking, which is why Virgin offers a free shuttle bus. For Dubrovnik, I also booked a guided tour on Voyager, but in comparison to the tour guide I had the day before, it was not that great. The group was very big and we stood still quite a lot, so we only saw a small part of the old town during this tour, although the tour guide was very knowledgeable. Fortunately, it wasn't that expensive, so it wasn't a huge disappointment. Dubrovnik is also well known as a filming location for the Game of Thrones series. Large parts of the old town were used to represent King's Landing, which is why parts of the city might look familiar. Because of that, some areas attract fans specifically looking for filming spots. Dubrovnik attracts a lot of tourists, and that's why you'll find many cafes, restaurants, market stalls, and many shops as well. Especially in the narrow streets, it can be very crowded. The old town is surrounded by thick, high walls, And the best part is that you can actually walk them and do a full loop around the city. I made the crazy decision to do the walk while the sun was at its highest point. It is not free though, because you need to buy the Dubrovnik pass to climb those stairs. The Dubrovnik pass was 35 euros back in 2024, so it was a bit expensive, but it also grants you access to the museums and other attractions in Dubrovnik, and hopefully the money is being used to preserve the city as well. And the walk was definitely worth the money. I would say it was magical because every 10 meters you see either something new or something you have seen but from a totally different perspective. And if you're a photographer or like to take pictures in general, you're definitely in the right place. I spent almost 2 hours on those walls. In the late afternoon, I went back to the ship and prepared myself to have dinner at the test kitchen, which you can find on deck 6. In terms of interior design, it's definitely my favorite restaurant. And what I like the most about it is you can sit at these bar tables around a huge kitchen island so that you can see the crew prepare the dessert. The concept of the test kitchen is to experience dining as an experiment with a fixed menu. They offer 2 menus, one in the first half of the cruise and the other on the second half. Fortunately, that evening's menu was not the same as the one I had a year before. Because the next port was close to Dubrovnik, we stayed in Dubrovnik until 10:30 that night, so that means you could go back to the city after dinner. I decided to stay on the ship to enjoy some live music, a magic show, and second dinner. Late in the evening we left Dubrovnik for the next port. The best thing of a Virgin Voyages cruise for me is the food. Not only do they offer a very wide range of different food and drinks, but the quality of the food is excellent. There are 6 specialty restaurants which are all included in your cruise fare, so no need to pay extra, and 1 semi-buffet restaurant, the galley. You also have other places on the ship where you can get food as well, for example the doghouse, the pizza place, and Sun Club Cafe. And there's so much choice that you won't be able to have eaten every food item they have available during one cruise trip. I was lucky to be on this specific itinerary because the food festival called Asian Night Market at Sea was being held in the galley. Instead of the usual menu, a totally different one was offered during dinner time, with lots of different Asian food and even special merchandise. I'm not sure if it's still offered in 2026, but Virgin is always full of surprises when it comes to food. On day 5, we arrived in Kotor in Montenegro. I thought the port of Dubrovnik was impressive, but I didn't expect Kotor to top it. We arrived at the Bay of Kotor, which was surrounded by mountains, which was absolutely impressive. After a full English breakfast at the galley, I prepared myself for the day to get off the ship, but not before taking a walk on the upper decks to enjoy the beautiful scenery around Kotor. Kotor was my very first tender port, which meant we had to take a tender boat to get ashore. For this port, Virgin used the ship's own lifeboats as tender boats, so they are definitely not for decoration and used regularly. Since it was already in the afternoon, there was a short line for the tender boats. If you go between 10 and 12, you need to book a slot in the app. The tender boats have a max capacity of around 300 people, so plenty of space. I have to admit that I would get seasick after 10 minutes, so fingers crossed I never have to be in these boats for an emergency. Fortunately, the trip to the port was just 7 minutes. I didn't do any research on Kotor as I was too lazy to do it, and I had no idea what to do or expect, so I just went with the flow and headed straight to the old town. Kotor is a small town with a wall around it, just like the old towns in Split and Dubrovnik. The big difference is that Kotor is surrounded by steep mountains, giving you these beautiful sceneries. The streets are narrow, and you can find many little cafes, restaurants, and shops. Some streets are paved with these slippery stones, and I can't imagine how slippery they are when it's raining, so be careful if you walk these streets. Outside the city, you can find little parks to sit and enjoy the beautiful bay, or you can choose to do a boat trip. There's also a small beach very close to the port, so that would be a good option as well. After a couple of hours, I went back to the port to get on the tender boat to return to the ship. This time I elbowed myself to sit next to the open exit, so that I could make some nice footage of Kotor. I headed straight to the galley to grab some food as I didn't find anything in Kotor that I really wanted to try. I considered heading back into Kotor, but decided it was better to relax on the ship. That night I had dinner at the Italian restaurant Extra Virgin, a favorite amongst many sailors. I think the interior is the least attractive of all the restaurants because it looks a bit dated in my opinion. If you're into wine, they have a pretty extensive wine list and it even tells you which dishes it pairs best with. It was early in the evening, so I didn't order too much so that I still have room for a second dinner or a late night snack. While I was enjoying my well-deserved steak, the ship was leaving the port. If there's one thing you want to take from this entire video, don't miss the sail away from Kotor. It's absolutely breathtaking. You sail through the Bay of Kotor with mountains and small villages on both sides, and you'll even see people stop their cars just to watch the ship pass by. And it goes on for a couple of hours. It was also the evening of Scarlet Night, the red-themed party held on board every Virgin Voyages ship. At 8, you'll hear the hostess's announcements through the speakers, which is very unique, as you hardly hear any announcements on the Virgin cruises at all.
Now, once every voyage, sailors celebrate Scarlet Night to honor their love and to assure safe passage. So, come a little closer. Get a little curious. Dive in.
All lights on the ship are turned red wherever possible and everyone is dressed up in red. There are special activities and events across the entire ship. And at around 10 the pool party starts, which attracts a lot of sailors. I was a bit surprised that it was that evening because the next day was another port day, and I think it would be more appreciated by the other sailors if it were a sea day to recover from it. If you're not really a pool party type of person, you can still enjoy live music across the ship. After a fine midnight snack, I headed back to my cabin. On day 6 of our cruise, we arrived in Corfu. Corfu is a Greek island and known for its green landscape, Venetian-style old town, and a coastline with clear turquoise water. I've never heard of it before, but apparently it's a popular Greek island for vacations and I can see why. The cruise port is close to the city, however not that close that's walkable, so Virgin offers a shuttle bus from the ship to the terminal and from the terminal to the old town. The great thing about Corfu is that they have something for everyone. There are beaches, museums, old sites that are open to the public, but also an old town with lots of shops, cafes and restaurants. I started my visit at this old fort because it was close to the shuttle bus stop. The old fort was interesting enough to visit because it will give you access to the watchtower so you can enjoy the great view. Keep in mind you'll have to walk quite a bit to get up there, and there aren't any drink vendors along the way. Very close to the fort you'll find the Museum of Asian Art. I didn't plan to go to a museum, but I needed a place to cool myself down a bit, since it was very hot outside. If you're into art pieces, then it's definitely worth a visit, but if you're more interested in paintings, you won't find many here. After my body temperature was back at 37 degrees, I headed to the old town, which was right next to the museum. It's a very beautiful old town where every building is in the same style. It attracts a lot of tourists. You will find a lot of cafes, restaurants and little shops you usually find in tourist areas. If you need something specific, you'll find other shops in the streets around the old town. In the late afternoon, I headed back to the ship and prepared myself for the evening. I started with dinner at the Razzle Dazzle restaurant, and for the first time on this cruise, I didn't have steak. As mentioned before, the Razzle Dazzle restaurant is a vegetarian restaurant, but there's enough choice for non-vegetarians as well. Just a side note, I'm making this video in 2026, and the Razzle Dazzle restaurants on the Scarlet Lady and the Brilliant Lady have other concepts. So you'll find the classic Razzle Dazzle restaurants only on the Valiant Lady and the Resilient Lady. After dinner, I headed up to the top decks to walk off some calories and enjoy the Greek sunset. And if you've had enough sunshine for the day, you can always enjoy music from live artists who perform around the ship. Not long after that, I went to the manor to visit the first showing of Lola's Library. Before the show, you already see the performers literally hanging around. It's a variety show and exclusive to the Resilient Lady, so you won't see it on the other 3 Virgin ships. Keep in mind that the show is usually only performed 4 times on a 7-night cruise, so don't miss out. As the manor is not a big venue, seats are limited, so make sure you arrive extra early. The show is around 75 minutes long and is a mix of singing, dancing and acrobatics, and definitely worth visiting. After the show, I went straight to the Red Room, where another show was playing, a comedy magic show called The Mind Mangler. It was definitely an entertaining show and well worth the visit. And since it was in the Red Room, there was plenty of space. The next day was the second sea day of this itinerary and a good day to relax and recharge after a couple of busy days. It was also the last full day on the ship, so you can take your time to start packing for disembarkation. On sea day mornings, you can try your luck at the bingo with the Diva. There are usually 4 rounds of bingo, each with an increasing prize pot that can get to $1,000 and more, so it's definitely worth the try. I have to say that although the Diva is making comments and jokes all the time, it wasn't distracting at all. Since you cannot get off the ship, Virgin makes sure you won't get bored with shows, live performances and many group activities throughout the ship. And you only have to think about what you want to eat or drink next. What more could you ask for? That evening I had dinner at Extra Virgin again to enjoy another steak, fresh made pasta and Italian gelato. Later that evening I went to the first showing of Persephone, another variety show with singing, dancing and acrobatics. It's performed in the Red Room, so there's plenty of space. And when you enter the venue, you're welcomed with, for some people, loud music and performances that are hanging from the ceiling. The show is definitely a must visit, with well choreographed acts. They call it an immersive experience, and it definitely is. The acts were not only performed on the central stage, so you really had to look around to see the other performers. Unfortunately, halfway through the show it was stopped because one of the performers got injured. The show didn't resume, so we had to leave the venue. The second performance later that evening was also cancelled. That was unfortunate, but hopefully the performer made a full recovery. But I never get bored on the ship anyway, as you can enjoy the sunset, dip your toes in the pools or grab some more food. The next day was a sad day because it was embarkation day. I had a flight late in the afternoon from Athens, so I could take my time to enjoy breakfast at the galley for the last time. After breakfast, I walked around the ship one last time to enjoy the view and the ship, but also to avoid the lines at the elevators or lifts, because it can be very crowded. There are many ways to get to the airport, and I had plenty of time, so I took a bus to the nearest metro station and took the metro to the airport. And that was the end of my second cruise with Virgin Voyages. I have to say that this itinerary was better than the previous one, mainly because I really enjoyed Greece and Croatia, and every port was a nice place to visit, especially Dubrovnik and Kotor. So I will definitely do this itinerary another time. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer them all. See you next time.